Welcome to episode 56 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on March 27th, 2021. It is the end of season 4. Thank you for listening, my friends. Today, I am bringing you an interview with Shira Blumenthal about Lion Brand Yarn and the Hat Not Hate initiative. I also have a bunch to share with you before I disappear from the podcast space for a bit, but just a bit. Let's get started. Barb and Heather, thank you for becoming patrons/producers over on patreon.com/I Thought I Knew How since the last episode of the show. Patrons keep the bills paid and receive some benefits in return. Learn more by hopping over to patreon.com/I Thought I Knew How. And I'd also like to thank Blue Stocking Fop and Hike and Knit for your very kind comments that you left with your 5-star reviews over on Apple Podcasts. They really were very sweet comments, and I have to say that I appreciated having the podcast to do through the pandemic, so I am so glad others found it especially helpful over this last year. Rating and reviewing the show anywhere you can helps it be more visible in the search algorithm, so I very much appreciate it when people take the time to do so, as it helps others find the show. I do have some things I want to share with you before moving on to the interview. Earlier this week, I finished up a series of Wednesday knitting classes with Helen Robertson. These were the Mindful Mackin classes that I'm fairly sure I talked about on the show before. They were at 1 p.m. UK time, which was 8 a.m. on the East Coast, and the experience was sponsored by Shetland Arts, so they were free and open to everyone. There were people from all over the UK, Belgium, and the US who participated in this last chunk of classes. Each week, we would take some time to chat about life before Helen would show us the project for that week. All of the projects are very simple and designed to be things you can produce in the hour and a half or so that we are together. A few of the projects I kept going with, like the log cabin coaster turned into a 12-inch square cushion cover that I knit all as one piece. Our last project was a triangular bunting, and I'm continuing to work on that until I run out of the yarn I pulled out for it. We also did some face cloths that I'm going to continue to knit here and there as I have the time. Those I'm knitting out of linen I reclaimed from a sweater that I got at Goodwill eons ago. I'm starting to digress a little. The purpose of the class isn't so much what you make, but the time you spend with others being thoughtful about your craft. Each class period included 10 minutes of just silent knitting. I know I am guilty of constantly multitasking. Usually if I'm sitting down somewhere, I'm knitting and I'm watching a TV show or I'm listening to an audiobook or I'm talking to someone in my family. But having that time to just sit and focus on my knitting was really helpful for me. I would have thoughts come to mind and sometimes I'd linger on them for a bit and sometimes I'd press them along. It was nice to just have the quiet. Of course, you could set yourself up to quietly knit somewhere on your own and focus on the feel of the yarn, the light on your needles, and the joy of creation. But if you think it's something you'd enjoy more as part of a group, you have 2 options. First, look for Shetland Arts on social media. They will be doing another round of classes, and you want to see when that announcement is made so you can get over and sign up quickly. And be sure to sign up for each individual class that you can attend. They aren't packaged as a group, or at least they weren't this last time. Or if you like, hop over to helenrobertson.com and look at her online classes. She's putting together a group that will meet on Tuesdays. That group is not sponsored, so there is a fee. That series will begin on April 13th, so hop over and have a look, and remember to keep your eye out also for the Shetland Arts option. The Westfjords Wanderer came off my needles yesterday. It is going to take me a while to get the ends woven in, and the blocking is going to take longer than the other shawls I've been knitting lately, but it should be done before the end of March, so I should be 3 for 3 on my goal to knit one big project a month in 2021. In the last episode, I described the lace in the Westfjords Wanderer as feather and fan. That is not the case. It is more of an old Shale pattern. They are often confused with one another because they both use yarn overs and decreases to create an undulating pattern in your knitting. But Old Shale is knit by having a series of yarn over knit ones, followed by a series of knit two togethers. Whereas Feather and Fan has the yarn over in knit ones, and then the decreases are all worked at once, typically with a knit 4 together. You'll also find sites that say Old Shale is knit over 18 stitches, Feather and Fan over 14. But to me, what is important about what makes them different is how those decreases are worked, because the series of knit 2 togethers that you work in Old Shale creates a softer curve than the knit 4 together of the Feather and Fan. Anyway, I wanted to clarify that for you all. The Westfjords Wanderer uses a version of Old Shale, not Feather and Fan. Please forgive me. The online International Fiber Festival continues to come together. I am learning so much about our 8 destinations. I'm kind of obsessed with Bulgaria at the moment, and Poland, and Norway, Cornwall, and Morocco. And I can't believe I haven't been to the Atlantic provinces of Canada yet, and there is so much of the South I haven't been to yet. And who doesn't want to visit Italy? The festival runs May 1st through 8th at oifiberfestival.com, and on the 8th, we will have a special live event about knitting in Morocco. I do not have all the information about when on the 8th that will happen yet, but get on my mailing list and I will keep you updated that way, or look for the info to come out on the Facebook and MeWe groups called I Thought I Knew How podcast. You can join the mailing list by visiting ithoughtIknewhow.com and scrolling down a little bit until you get to the section about joining the mailing list. People who sign up for the mailing list are now getting a copy of my yarn stash organizing process that you can print out and go through on your own time too. So another reason to go get on that list. As part of that event on May 8th, we will be learning how the shepherds of the High Atlas Mountains use the yarn they have and the needles they have to knit a hat using bodily proportions. So you will not need a hat pattern to cast on. You will need some yarn and 5 DPNs in order to use this technique. If you have not used DPNs before, please do not stress about this. People used double-pointed needles for hundreds of years before circulars were introduced, and I will make a video in the coming weeks that will show you how to get started with them. You will need a hat-appropriate amount of whatever yarn you want to use and whatever size needle makes sense for that yarn. You can use the guidance on the ball band to help you decide. Don't stress this too much. Enough yarn for a hat and a set of 5 DPNs that go with that yarn. Keep your eye out for the newsletter. Check the Facebook and MeWe groups for details on the time for the May 8th event, as well as for the video on getting the project started beforehand. Also, around mid-April, start checking oifiberfestival.com for the grocery lists and class supply lists for the festival. New listeners, you can find details about what the online International Fiber Festival is at oifiberfestival.com, and the last festival from November is still there if you want to give a few of the days a try and get a sense for it before the new one comes on May 1st. Thank you to Morehouse Farm for supporting the show. If you are looking for a distraction-free online community that will help you improve your knitting, check out morehousemerinoflock.com, where you can take part in instructional knit-alongs and receive the help you need along the way without the ads and the anger. I held some cashmere the other day and was reminded of just how amazing it is. If you have been looking for a way to treat yourself, hop over to knitnewhaven.com. They currently have Clinton Hill cashmere in stock in DK worsted and super bulky weights. It is the ultimate treat. Adagio Teas is not just for cold weather months. They also have a full line of iced tea options, including herbals. You drop the pouch in the pitcher and let it steep overnight, or brew it in hot water and add some ice. It is a perfect, refreshing alternative to sodas as we enter the summer months. Find the link in the show notes to give them a try, or visit the Be a Booster page at ithoughtIknewhow.com to find links to all our affiliates, including Wool and Allbirds Shoes. When you use the links there to visit the affiliates' websites, any purchases you make help pay the bills with no additional cost to you. Thanks so much for supporting the show. All right, everybody, all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted. It's time to slip into the interview with Shira Blumenthal of Lion Brand and Hat Not Hate. I hope you enjoy the interview. It was a real treat to speak with Shira. It's always a treat to speak to people with a passion, even more so when it's a passion for doing something good. I'll see you on the other side.
Shira Blumenthal is the brand ambassador and a member of the 5th generation of Lion Brand Yarn Company, a family-owned business established in 1878. Most of us are probably familiar with Lion Brand yarns, which are available from lionbrand.com, as well as major craft chains like Joann and Michaels. Shira is also the founding force behind the Hat Not Hate campaign, in which knitters and crocheters make and donate blue hats to be distributed to U.S. schools in October, which is National Bullying Prevention Month. Shira, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Lion Brand is a longstanding family-owned business and is hugely popular in the American craft market. How lucky are you to have been born to such an amazing legacy?
Ooh, beyond. I am so lucky. I am so blessed. And it was never pushed upon me to be a part of this business. It was something that ever since, I always say I have yarn for veins. I came out of the womb and my birth announcement was knit one, purl two, guess who? And it had like two little tiny like sticks with pink yarn, looked like it was knitting. It was a very cute birth announcement. It's something that my parents have told me I can do lots of different things. I don't have to go into the yarn business and I don't have to go into Lion Brand, but I felt it was my calling. I felt that it was my passion and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I've been going into the office every day that I had off from school when I was a little girl. I would come into the office with my dad over going into the office with my mom. I loved talking to all the different employees. I loved being there when my grandfather was there. I have so many memories of growing up at Lion Brand, and I am so, so lucky that it is my family that has created this amazing brand.
When did you first pick up the needles yourself?
So funny enough, my au pair who took care of me when I was 1 was such an integral part of our family. When he came back to the US, his name is Mark, he ended up coming to work for Lion Brand. And so he has literally known me since I was in diapers, and he still works at Lion Brand today. I have meetings with him every Monday. And he taught me how to knit in Columbus, Ohio at a trade show. And I will never forget sitting down and learning how to knit with him.
So were you in your teens at that point?
I was 9 years old. 9 years old.
Wow.
Yes. I was 9. Yeah.
Do you remember your first project?
Yes. And it's funny. I always tell people now, I go about teaching people how to knit and crochet very differently. I mean, he was kind of just showing me the stitches and that, but it was on a pair of metal knitting needles and classic. And it was using our homespun yarn in Edwardian black. Obviously not the best yarn to start something off with. And
well, fine. So your eyesight's still really good.
Oh yeah, exactly. My eyes were sharp. But I remember knitting this scarf, and man, did it have all sorts of shapes to it. It was not a rectangle. And I remember being so determined to finish it. And I actually gave it to my vocal coach. I used to take singing lessons. And I gave it to him as a gift, and such a sweetheart. He took it with just open arms, and he was so kind. But I wish I kept it because I would have loved to have shared it. But I still have the first hat that I ever made. So that's something. And I always show that to students when I used to teach kids how to knit and crochet. Like I showed that to them because I wanted them to know that, the mistakes are what make the pieces special. So, yeah. And there were a lot of mistakes in that hat. Sorry.
And you mentioned crochet too. When did you start crocheting?
No one ever taught me really how to crochet. I think I was inspired to pick up crocheting. I did like one crochet project. Lion Brand came out with a kit many years ago, many moons ago, supporting research for breast cancer. And it came with like pink yarn and a pink hook. And I kind of figured out how to make this like holy scarf. I don't know how old I was. I remember doing it with my mom on a plane, but I think really like I got into crocheting more when I started working at the Lion Brand Yarn Studio that used to be in New York City, because I was just so inspired by all the people that I would watch, all our customers that would come in and all the people I worked with. I was like, I want to be bicraftual. I want to make this happen. So I would probably say more actively crocheting when I worked at the studio in New York City.
I was there, not this last summer, but the summer before, and the display was the ocean scene with
the best, the octopus and the
yeah.
Ugh.
That was amazing. And I started with crochet and then learned to knit, and it sort of that took off. But man, that storefront, that window display was
all the windows display, all
yeah.
of them, they were so magical
Yeah.
and so inspiring, because I think just so many people think that yarn is just for like hats and scarves and like sweaters,
Yeah.
but it's so much more than that. And that's what those windows were about.
Yeah, they were incredible.
Yeah.
So as you are working with the Lion Brand yarn, is there one that you turn to over and over again?
Always. Anyone that knows me knows that I am in love with Woolies Thick and Quick. It is one of, I think, the best yarns that Lion Brand has. I mean, one, it's a classic. Like the whole Woolies family is a classic. The concept that it's, 80% acrylic, 20% wool. So you have like both of them in there. It's machine washable and dryable. I have a cowl that I made out of that about 9 years ago. And I have put it through the washer, the dryer, and I live in an apartment building. Like this is not like a fancy washer dryer. This is like everyone else shares it with me. And this cowl looks brand new every time. And it's because of the quality of the yarn, hands down. The colors are beautiful. We're actually going to be, I'm working on a cardigan with one of our Woolies colors. So I love Woolies Thick and Quick always. And also it's like a super bulky yarn. So it just like knits up fast, and just the stitches are beautiful, and it crochets beautifully. Like you can't go wrong.
Yeah, my mother was a big fan of the Woolies yarn, and when I started crocheting, she gave me a lot of her yarn stash, remnant balls and stuff, and so I did a lot of Afghans in Woolies Thick and Quick, or the Woolies regular.
Right, the Woolies worsted.
Like you said, it machine washes and comes out beautiful every time.
It's amazing. Classic.
But the one thing that surprised me when I was able to go to the shop there in New York was how many natural fiber yarns the Lion Brand has, because I had only ever seen them through the big craft stores. I'd never thought to check lionbrand.com.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I walked into the store and I was seeing like the 50/50, which is the alpaca wool blend, and there were hand dyed merino was there, and bamboo, and I got some yarn that was strips of old saris.
Oh yeah, the recycled. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I kept checking, like whoever was working probably thought I was a crazy person, because I kept checking the labels, like where is this? Why are they selling other people's yarns in the Lion Brand store? And I finally realized, like, oh no, this is all Lion Brand yarn. And like, how long has this been going on that I haven't been aware of this?
It's actually quite interesting. So when we opened up the Lion Brand Yarn Studio, unfortunately, it closed down in April of 2020. But when we opened up the store, which I believe it was my sophomore year of college. I remember that. 2008, 2009, somewhere in there. So it'd been open for a few years. And one of the things that we wanted to do with the studio when it opened was to make that there be something special about the studio. And that was it. We created a line of yarns that were natural fibers. So we had superwash merino, we had 100% silk, we had cotton bamboo, there were so many different types, and it's grown. But the catch is that you could only find this line of natural fibers at the Lion Brand Yarn Studio or at the Lion Brand Yarn Outlet, which is still up and running in Carlstadt, New Jersey, or go online to lionbrandyarn.com. But people it was kind of like the secret, like this treasure that you had to kind of like know about, So, but it still exists, and it's even better. And truth be told, even since then, because it is a family business, my older brother, Adam, who heads up product development for the company, he's so interested in creating yarns that haven't been, and like, how can we make it better? And like, what can we do? So we've come out recently with this whole sustainable collection of yarns that are, 100% bamboo, but that it's not part of the LB collection. That's part of just the regular line. We have re-up. We have 100% hemp. We have lots of natural fibers that are actually just mainstream yarns for us that are not just a part of that Lion Brand yarn collection, because natural fibers are important to people. And we try very hard to listen to our customers. We also try to keep up with all the trends that are happening. And that is a very big one of really, using products and using yarns that are saving the earth.
Right. Yeah. And it is an incredible selection. I was on the website looking through them all, and I only have so much room in my office here.
I know. That's everyone's problem. That's every fiber person's problem. I only have so much room.
Space. Oh. So your main role in the company now is as a brand ambassador. And I think people would be interested in hearing what that entails, like what an average working day is for you.
Well, it's interesting because if you would have asked me this maybe like last February, I would have given you a little bit of a different answer. But as 2020 took us all down a very interesting road, my role has changed. But pre all of this past year, the average day in the life of a brand ambassador at Lion Brand involved a lot of social media in regards to my Instagram, which is Shira Roars, and really just kind of sharing what it is to be a brand ambassador and just my personal life of being a girl in the yarn biz, who's in this awesome family business, and kind of getting this like peek through the door of my family and my father and my brother and that relationship and my relationship to yarn. But also I would do all the videos. Our YouTube channel, the Lion Brand Yarn YouTube channel before the pandemic happened was just, we had Yarn University where we would talk about different types of fibers out there. And we would also have my web series called Tea with Shira, which was something that we just wrapped up before the end of 2020, where we would interview lots of different people in the craft industry and yarn and fiber. Any way that I could tie it back to yarn, they were on that show. And it was a lot of fun. It was something, each episode averaged somewhere between 7 to 12 minutes. And it was just fun getting to interview so many different people over a time of 6 years. And it was crazy that my colleague Sarah and I did it together, and we made it happen. And we created a set when our offices moved to New Jersey. It was really exciting. And also the other part of my job, besides being on camera a lot, was traveling to different guilds around the country and talking to them about Lion Brand, because I think that that's one of the things that a lot of people assume, that Lion Brand was like, oh, I learned how to knit with Lion Brand, but like their yarns are just like, whatever. They're like all acrylic. No, we have so many different types of yarn. And as crafters, and especially for me, I'm such a visual person that I want to be able to touch it. I want to be able to feel it. I want to be able to do the neck test. I want to be able to squish it. I want to, feel and see how many, like how it's spun and, is it fluffy? Is it soft? Is it squishy? Is it itchy? Like all those things. And it's so hard to do when it's on the internet. So what I would do as brand ambassador, I would travel to different guilds around the country and going to these groups, and I would talk to them about Lion Brand, and I would bring, different garments with me as well as yarns, and just inspire them. And like I always would say, like light a fire within them that maybe they didn't have before, and that they never knew that Lion Brand had such yarns. And my passion for this company would fill the room because they knew where I came from. They knew who I was. And if they didn't know who I was, they found out very quickly who I was. And they were just as excited as I was by the end of the evening. And it was just exciting to be able to share my passion for this company that I love so much.
And one of the things I know that you've been doing online while all of this has been going on has been the She Show. Do you want to tell us about that?
Oh man, the She Show. We're actually just approaching our 1-year anniversary, which was March 19th. And when all of this happened, we were trying to figure out, obviously my traveling stopped and all these group meetups stopped. And a lot of my responsibilities and my project manager's responsibilities kind of like went to a halt. And we were like, well, what do we do? So initially the name of the show is Crafting Connection. That very quickly got changed by the community to the She Show. And it has been like a whirlwind. If you would have told me a year ago this time, Shira, I promise you, you're going to start a daily live streaming show every day. And you are going to interview lots of different, I mean, at this point, I think I've interviewed over 200 different types of people that have come on the show and talked about what they're doing, whether they are, we've done cooking shows. We've done, we've had facialists, like people who do facials come on, and we've had people who are life therapists, coaches, entrepreneurs, crafters, weavers, spinners, dyers, knitters, crocheters, jewelers, like literally anyone that needs a light, that needs a light to be shined on them. And Lion Brand has such a massive reach. And I wanted to take that reach and use it for good. And small businesses, small makers, entrepreneurs, I just wanted to share with this community. And also, we were all going through this together. It's one of the one things in our lifetime, as unfortunate as it's been, because there have been some true dark days, that we all can understand. It's not like, oh, you don't know, you didn't. No, we all have been going through this together, day by day together. And I think that the She Show was really at the beginning, when I would sign out or even introduce the show, that it was just a place for us to all come together for a half hour, 12 to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every day on the Lion Brand Facebook page, and just forget about what's going on out there and to just focus what's happening here and to just create this community. And since then, it has created, they call themselves the She Family, then they're She Friends, and then they're within the She Friend, they're She Sisters. There are all these different groups. And the greatest thing is because of the show. And that, even today, I just had a She Show before I'm talking to you, and someone referred to it as their pandemic family. We have really been through it, and it has been one of the coolest, craziest experiences ever. We would do Facebook Lives before, and we would do unboxings and all that, and we tried to use that platform, but we could never figure it out. And then the She Show happened, and without my project manager for Hat Not Hate, Meg made it happen. She became a producer. She didn't know she was going to be a producer, but now she is. And it's one of the coolest things that I think that has come out of this whole thing.
Yeah. It's the amount of community that has come together through our online resources. It's so crazy. As we went into lockdown, that was the big fear, right? Was how are we going to see people and get to know people? And yeah, we can't do it in person, obviously, but among my listeners and the She Show and other outlets out there, people have been making connections several states over, several countries over, and all these friendships have come to be. It's been incredible.
It has been. It was actually something that I brought up the other day. I had a guest that was in California, and she came on. She does singing bowls, and it was like a whole meditation. It was really cool. And she said, it's funny. And I knew her from college, and I said, it's crazy. Before the pandemic, I feel like we would have been like, oh, you're in Chicago, like you're in California. It's not going to work out. Like maybe when you're in New York, you'll come. Right. But it's so possible. Yes, it's not the same thing as being in person. I will not question that one bit, but it shouldn't limit us. That's as much as this year has been very limiting to all of us, there are some ways that we don't have to be limited. And that's one of them.
Let's talk about Hat Not Hate. I am very interested in this because it seems like it just took over the crafting world a few years ago. And now it's to the point where, like, I have some friends who, if they're between projects, they don't know what they're going to knit next, they'll do a hat for Hat Not Hate, or they've set a goal to do one a month, or however, it's become part of the atmosphere among crafters. And I'm really curious about the purpose of the campaign and what the inspiration was for it.
Yeah. So I remember a few years back, it was back in 2018. I got an email from my boss at the time, and he said to me, he was like, Shira, have a look at this girl. Maybe you can have her on the She Show, T was Shira. She Show didn't exist yet. And I looked at it, and I always enjoyed watching other people and their interviews, because for T with Shira was interviewing. So you never know what you could get out of it. And you never know who you were going to listen to or meet via this interview. I started listening to it, and it was this young girl. She was 9 years old, and she was based out, I don't remember her name. She was based out of Florida, and she was being interviewed because she was being bullied for her skin color. She was a Black girl in a predominantly white school, and she was being bullied for that. And I mean, how awful is that? But she took the situation and she started collecting dolls of color to then hand out to other girls that, were in communities, and to just empower them, and to know that, there are other girls, that there are girls that look like them too. And they're people, not just for girls, for boys as well. Mm-hmm. And it just struck a nerve with me, because at the time I was 29, turning 30, and I was so taken by the fact that this young girl at 9 was being given lemons, and she was turning it into lemonade at the age of 9. And I was horrifically bullied when I was 9. And to a point where it was during my 4th grade year, and I switched out for 5th grade, and I went to a whole new school. And as much as I tried to forget about that experience. I mean, you can ask anyone close to me, I still carried anger and just frustration, and just, for lack of a better, upsetness that this person really, she ruined my 4th grade year. She had such an impact, to a point where I still had that pain at the age of 29. And I was like, how can I do something in the yarn world as to what this girl has done in her community? And I thought about it, and we ultimately thought of hat, not hate. It's not plural, it's just hat, not hate. And if you unravel the E of hate, you have a hat. And that's what it is. Every hat makes a difference. And what I have asked is that knitters, crocheters, loomers out there, that they make blue hats, and they send them to us at Hat Not Hate headquarters. And then we distribute those hats to students around the country during the month of October, which is National Bullying Prevention Month. And the first year I asked for 1,500. And a lot of people, including my father, he knows I always have to include him in this part because it's a very important part of the story. He said, I'll be impressed if you get 200. On my 30th birthday, I was unfortunately not able to be there. My birthday was on September 28th, and our deadline was September 24th. And they called me I was in Israel, and they called me, and he said, your total is 2,600. And I thought he was messing with me, because he'll mess with me. And I remember exactly where I was in my hotel room, and I just lost it completely. I was so proud, not only of myself for not listening, not only to my father, but for a lot of other naysayers that said, this is ridiculous, it's not going to happen, but also so proud of this community that they got it, that they understood. And there were hats. The furthest hat that I got that year was from Benghazi, Libya. And it was mind blowing that people, that one hat, that there were packages of one hat, there were packages of 10 hats, there were packages from Hawaii, there were packages from Canada, there were packages from Florida, literally all over the US. And they heard me. They heard my story, they got it, and they wanted to help me. And not only help me, but help these kids. Because the concept really is that each of these blue hats are completely different. I always say, if you have a sheep in your backyard and you want to shear that sheep and you want to dye that wool blue and you want to spin it and you want to knit it or crochet it, I will take that hat. It does not have to be Lion Brand. It can be any blue. You can dye it. You can do whatever you want as long as it is blue, because each of these hats are different, just like each and one of these children. And that's what we need to do. We need to continue to teach, and we need to further teach these children of all ages that they are different and they should be celebrated that they are different, not to be singled out because they are different. And the pain that I had when I was 9, that was so, was the worst. I never wish that upon anyone, not even my worst enemy. And truth be told, to the person who did bully me, I don't think she realized the impact that she had on my life for a multitude of levels. But if I saw her today, I would wholeheartedly give her a hug, because she gave me these lemons. And over a 20-year period, I have held on to those lemons, and I have now been able to take these lemons and make it into, as I always say, some spicy blue lemonade. And I have learned to appreciate this situation that was so hard when I was younger, but how I've been able to turn it and make it one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. Because without her, I would have never had Hat Not Hate.
I would like to personally thank you actually for this campaign, as someone who, I went through bullying as a child, but then as a parent, my oldest has been severely bullied. And both of my daughters have lost a friend to suicide due to bullying. And I think that when we were younger, it was seen as that's just how kids are. That's normal behavior.
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah, you'll get through it, kiddo. And I think that there's been a real shift in the last 5 years or so, I would say, to really taking it on, and adults being more aware that it is a problem that can be dealt with appropriately, and it's not just something that kids need to endure, because not all kids they're not equipped to endure it.
Not only are they equipped to endure it, but they're also, some of them don't have the support to endure it. Like, I think back to myself, I was beyond lucky of the support system that I had, but I know that there are kids out there that do not have what I had. And to hear when these young kids, and also just even 18-year-olds, when they've taken their lives to bullying, it's horrific. It makes my heart ache. And not to mention the whole other new layer of cyberbullying, which is just, oh my goodness, there's just so many levels to this. And it should never, ever, ever be a rite of passage. And the truth is, it doesn't just stop with kids. I've witnessed my friends, my equals, my colleagues, not my colleagues, but people my age go through situations of being bullied. And I'm dumbfounded. That it doesn't stop. And that's why my dream is that one day they're blue hats at Google, they're blue hats at Facebook, they're blue hats at Twitter, they're blue hats at Instagram, they're blue hats at the supermarket, they're blue hats everywhere, because it starts with the kids. And if it's not fixed, it turns into adults.
Right.
And I believe that if we can, as a community, and every year, that it should be that it is part of our learnings, it is part of our community, is part of our ethos, that these blue hats are different, just like each and every one of us. And we need to celebrate that and accept that and be kind to one another.
Absolutely. So when the hats come into you, what's the next step? What happens?
Oh man. So when the hats come in, we open up each package by hand. And there are notes beyond notes. I mean, some days of opening these notes, I have come home and just passed out of the amount of crying that I have done reading these people. I mean, these people tell me their stories, and I have all these notes. I've become like a low-key hoarder. Like I can't get rid of them because they share such trauma with me. And I feel like it was their therapy. And I've met some of these makers where one woman, she made 500 hats.
Wow.
And she was bullied.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of these hats was therapy for her. There was someone who I refer to as my blue angel now, as he passed away unexpectedly, John Giswald. He was an amazing person and actually wrote an amazing article on an op-ed on out.com about his experience. He was a 60-plus-year-old man, and he was bullied when he was younger. And now, as this strong, amazing, fierce gay man, he wrote this amazing article about how far he has come and the fact that it does get better and that people shouldn't let these people come down on. But he was someone who advocated for Hat Not Hate and created a whole community of knitters and crocheters and makers to make hats for Hat Not Hate. So we get these hats from these makers, we read these notes, they then get put into this mass pile of hats, and then we separate them out from smalls to larges, although we always ask for pretty much normal size measurements. Like if it fits your head, chances are it will fit a kid's head, because I think people think that like kids have small heads. They don't. Their heads actually are pretty much the same size as ours. They're just, their minds are small and they're growing. But these hats, then we divvy them out into sizes, and we then have a certain amount of hats that go in per box. And then we work with our educational director, Dennis, to find schools around the US, hopefully one day, fingers crossed, around the world. And we distribute these hats during the month of October. And what we've worked with Dennis is to create a whole assembly now virtually, which is awesome. So it can be anywhere, to kind of empower them and really start the conversation and spark the conversation to speak nicely to one another, you know, and to encourage people to be there for one another. If you would have told me that, like, the same thing with the She Show, like this would be as big as it is in such a short time, I wouldn't have even believed you, because it has been, just as you said, it has been really accepted in this craft community. And I always say I may have started this, but it is because of the makers that it continues. I could not do it without them.
Yeah, it's amazing what can be done when crafters hear about something.
Oh man, we are quite the army. I refer to it as a blue army and blue soldiers, that they are just creating this message and spreading it. And it doesn't have to be, you can, that's the other thing, is that people can get involved with Hat Not Hate, even if they're not a knitter or crocheter or, you know, a loomer. I mean, this year we actually we partnered with Faber-Castell Creativity for Kids, and we came out with a whole Hat Not Hate loom kit, which is awesome. It was, I mean, my face is on a box and these kids are on a box, and it makes me so happy. But it's more that my message is being, you know, put into space that I could have never even imagined. And it's really teaching kids about creating and making with their hands, which is so important, especially as we become so dependent on screens this year for kids, but also about sharing. You know, the concept of the box is that you can make 2 hats, one to wear and one to share. And, you know, one to either share with a friend or one to donate to Hat Not Hate. And I have made the hats and on the loom, and it really is, it's not hard. It can be done. If my 12-year-old nephew, who only plays soccer and Fortnite, can make a hat on a loom, anyone can do it. So there are so many ways that you can get involved, and even just using the hashtag and just saying that you support it and you want to end it, it definitely makes a difference.
Well, I've been putting off looming, but maybe this is what's going to get me to give that a try.
I like it. I like it.
So if I know you said that you have an educational director that reaches out to the schools, but can the schools reach out to you directly and ask to be put on the list?
Yes. So they can, schools, we love it when schools reach out to us directly. They can go to our website, hatnothate.org, for all information, and they can contact Dennis directly through there. And he is on it. He is rapid fire. It's amazing how it turns out, Meg, my project manager for Hat Not Hate, her big brother is Dennis. So we really keep it in the family, and I could not have asked for two passionate people that they are. They really, they get it. And that's the thing, when they're schools and when they're teachers, and we've had teachers that have reached out to us and they're so passionate about it. It's amazing because it just makes the whole process that much more just full, and when teachers are into it. We recently had a teacher reach out to us from a school in the Bronx, and we were able to do a hat drop at the beginning of February, which was cool because it's been hard not, holding these hats. Our goal for 2020 was 100,000 hats, and then the pandemic happened. So it kind of put a pause to a lot of stuff. But we're still working towards that goal of 100,000 for August 1st, 2021. Mm-hmm. And being able to do this hat drop of 500 hats at this school in the Bronx was so cool, because I remember talking to Meg that morning, and she's like, I feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and there was like a little bit of normalcy. So schools can most definitely reach out to us. They can reach out to Hat Not Hate. They can go onto the website, hatnothate.org, or they can also email info@hatnothate.
Have you heard back from any of the schools or the kids after the assembly and distribution? And
it was actually, it's funny. Today we had a meeting, my Hat Not Hate team, we had a meeting, and we were talking about how this one school did this really cool thing. Actually, most recently, PS294, not only did they come on the She Show, some of the students come on the She Show and talk about what the hat. Yeah. It was, not only was it adorable, but it was also just hearing some of these kids speak so beautifully about what Hat Not Hate means to them. They set up this page. I don't even know what platform they used, but these kids throughout the whole week were talking about what it is to be a bully and how I can be kind, and what I learned from the assembly. And it was just, it made us burst of just pure joy that they got it. And that's the thing. It's, I remember we were all students. We were all students once, and we all had different types of assemblies. And in these assemblies, sometimes they would resonate, sometimes they wouldn't. And I think I remember maybe like 2 or 3 from my years of assemblies. I want that at least one student walks away, at least one of the 60 that I talked to. If one walks away and gets it, I've done my job. Mm-hmm. And my team has done their job, because I hope that it resonates with each and every one of them. But if one, it only takes one, because it only took me to make that, that call out for hats, and look at the ripple effect that's happened from just me. So if I have me, and then I have just one from here and one from here and one from here, now I got a team. And with a team, we can conquer so much. So we have heard back from students, and even so much as one of the kids on the box for the Hat Not Hate loom, Braden, he claims that he works for Hat Not Hate. He does not. But he is most definitely an honorable employee of Hat Not Hate. And he's so passionate about it, and he gets it. So he's out there and he's spreading the message. And I'm so thankful to him, because it's to the people that get it that are the fires behind Hat Not Hate.
I think you mentioned August 1st is the next eviction deadline.
August 1st, 2021 is the deadline. All the information of where to send your hat is on hatnothate.org under the FAQ section. We have a Hat Not Hate Instagram. There's a Hat Not Hate Facebook page. There's also a She Show Facebook page. The She Show also talks about Hat Not Hate a lot, because it's my campaign, and of course it's my show, so I'm going to talk about it. But you can't miss it. We're everywhere, and even if you just look up the hashtag, you'll find us.
Wonderful. Well, our next listener knit along is going to actually be hats. And I'm encouraging everybody to do it in blue so that you can donate it to Hat Not Hate. We're going to have a live stream on May 8th on the last day of the Online International Fiber Festival. And Irene Waggener, the author of Keepers of the Sheep, is going to lead us in how to knit a hat using 5 DPNs and no pattern. And just the methods that the shepherds of the High Atlas Mountains use as they're knitting to make sure that it's going to fit as they measure as they go along. So we're going to learn how to do that. So it can be blue yarn, any size. I suggest machine washable because we're going to be donating it to kids. And more information will be coming up about that. So pay attention. But in the meantime, I want to thank Shira so much for taking the time, first of all, for doing the campaign, because it is important. And again, as a parent, thank you for doing this. And also thank you for coming on the show and giving me some of your time to share this with my listeners. I know we have some hardcore Hat Not Hate knitters out there already, but I'm hoping that other people will join in too.
And I want to thank you so much for giving me the time to talk about it. And also just to say, you know, these hats, there have been people in the past that have made these hats that have helped work through their trauma. And as part of, you know, Lion Brand, one of our missions is to really empower this mental health awareness and to really understand that there is so much you can do to help yourself, even when you're feeling in the darkest of dark. And knitting, crocheting, crafting, there is no question that it has saved me in times. And there's no question in the letters that I've received for Hat Not Hate that it has saved these makers. So I hope that if you are listening to this and you have an experience where you were bullied, I really believe that working through this hat will be this therapy for you and this sense that you can end that chapter and begin a better and bigger and bluer one with Hat Not Hate. And just know that, you know, Lion Brand has really been very focused on empowering Hat Not Hate and also the mental health community and really empowering people to pick up those needles, to pick up the hooks, to pick up the yarn and to work through it, because we all can. This crafting community is one of the most amazing communities that I am lucky enough to be a part of. And we are all there for each other. And that's really just Hat Not Hate is just another example of how we can all come together.
Thank you so much, Shira.
Thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to receiving all those blue hats from you guys. Let me know that you listened. So I know to just be so thankful for this interview beyond. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
When everything's said and done, I leave you with love. When everything's going wrong, choose love. When they've gone too far, they make you question who you are. When it wrecks you on the inside, yeah, everybody knows there are times when it's so hard to choose love. But why can't I stay forever? And when my songs have all been sung, I hope I've given all I have to you to show you how it's done. How it's done. They may try to take your everything, but they can't take your love. And it might blow up in your face one day, but just love. When you feel that it might break you or literally kill you, and nobody will blame you for giving up the fight. There's only one thing that lasts forever, one thing that never dies. There's only one way to cast out darkness, and that's to shine a light. That's to shine a light. That's to shine a light. No, I cannot stay forever, and when my songs have all been sung, I hope I've given all I have to you, to show you how it's done, to show you how it's done.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. The song is How It's Done by Nicholas Rowe, and I thought it lined up so well with the discussion with Shira. Love is what makes those lemons into lemonade, and it changes hearts and minds much more effectively than anger or bullying or force, even though those are so often our first impulse. You will never regret pausing to find the more loving response. I do have a few more things before I go, including more information about the knit-along I mentioned in the interview. We are going to kick it off on May 8th as we have our live event to finish off the online International Fiber Festival. We're going to spend some time knitting some blue hats for Hat Not Hate. At the live event, we will be knitting hats using the methods employed by the shepherds of the High Atlas Mountains, and the result of that method is that all of those hats are going to be unique. The yarn choice, the shade you pick, and any patterning you decide to add. If you use a blue yarn, you can start knitting for the Hat Not Hate knit-along that night. Or you can knit a hat for yourself at the event and cast on something else for the knit-along once you're comfortable with the method. Or you can just find a hat pattern you like and take part in the knit-along. It's up to you. But the knit-along is going to be to knit some blue hats for Hat Not Hate. As you finish your hats, post a photo of them on social media. On Instagram, post a photo of them using the hashtags Hat Not Hate and I Thought I Knew How. We want Hat Not Hate in there so our efforts spread the word to others. And I'd like the I Thought I Knew How hashtag so that I'm sure to see them as I'm looking for participants in our knit-along. On Facebook or MeWe, post your photos in the I Thought I Knew How groups. If you are not on social media, you can mail your images to ann@ithoughtIknewhow.com. Each hat you finish and either email me a picture of or post to social media so I see it between May 8th and May 31st will be an entry for a prize of a sampler of Lion Brand's natural fiber yarns worth $50 mailed directly to your home. Because of the state of international postage, this particular prize will only be available to those with a U.S. mailing address. But, international listeners, I am not leaving you out in the cold. Please knit hats too. It will be up to you whether you knit them and mail them into Hat Not Hate, or if you would like to knit them for another charity that is local to you so you don't have to mail the hats internationally, that's fine too. Same rules as far as posting them to social media so I can see them. Post them in the MeWe or Facebook groups, send me pictures and an email to ann@familypodcast.com, or post them to Instagram with the hashtag I Thought I Knew How. If you are doing them for Hat Not Hate, use the Hat Not Hate hashtag as well. Otherwise, use the hashtag for the local charity you're going to donate them to. International participants who post their finished hats to social media so I can see their posts between May 8th and May 31st will be entered to win a PDF pattern book donated by Morehouse Farm called Top 24 Morehouse Tops to Cover Young and Old that contains their 24 most popular hat patterns. If you were to buy the patterns individually, it's an over $100 value, and the booklet itself is priced at $69. You can win a copy by being an overseas listener who takes part in this charity hat knit along. And of course, after May 31st, get those hats delivered where they need to be. There will be a link in the show notes to the Hat Not Hate mailing instructions, or if you're overseas, get them sent off to your local charity or to Hat Not Hate. Reminders and such will be posted in the groups and in the newsletter as we get closer to the time, but start stash diving now so you're ready when May 8th rolls around. At some point in April, there will be a new schedule going up on the Facebook and MeWe groups for our online knit-togethers for the next 4 months of the year. Over the last 4 months, like through April, that's already been posted, and we've been doing 1 monthly knit-together open for all listeners and 2 for patrons each month. Always on a Tuesday from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Between May 1st and about mid-October, though, my calendar is just out of control. I'm going to try to maintain the 3 meetup schedule, but there will be some months when I just can't. And there are other months when I can, but they can't always be on Tuesdays. So when that schedule goes up, be sure to look it over carefully because there may be some Saturdays and such that make it easier for you to join us if you haven't had a chance to. And I do apologize to those who can only do Tuesdays, but I just have an unhinged amount of commitments coming up. If I can't do both online knitting sessions for my patrons because I'm traveling, I will make it up to you with some travel logs on the Patreon feed. So you can look for those instead. And that I'll just make all of that clear ahead of time. I still don't know when I'll be back to start season 5, but it's looking like it will be late May. Hop into your podcasting app and make sure you're following or subscribe to the podcast. Different apps use a different term. Some call it following, some call it subscribing. Either way, it just means that you have joined up to follow the podcast for free, and the new episodes are automatically downloaded to your device when they go live. You guys, I'm going to miss you over the next couple of months. Please feel free to drop me an email or hop into one of the online knitting sessions to say hi. I'm still going to be around. I just need the extra time to get the festival together and then have a little mental breather afterward. But the time is going to pass quickly, and I'll be back with more episodes before you know it. See you soon, my friends. Thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you'd like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/IThoughtIKnewHow to make a monthly pledge. You may also consider making a purchase from one of our sponsors by visiting the website IThoughtIKnewHow.com and clicking the link at the top that says Be a Booster. While you're on the site, you can also find the show notes for each episode. Thank you ever so much to my patrons, to Knit New Haven, and to Morehouse Farm for sponsoring the podcast. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on Twitter, where it's just Thought I Knew How. The groups on various platforms are all called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.